All right, again, everybody. Dave Stevens coming to you from Radio Row as we wrap up our Friday afternoon, and we got that feedback. I don't know what the heck that is. Let's fix that.
Stop on again. I don't know why that keeps coming on.
Is this thing muted?
I got it. It's on.
Did you fix it? There we go. We got rid of it. All right. I didn't want to. I got this. Our next guest has such a pretty face. I wanted to be able to see him and hear him. So, let's just. I always like starting the show. It puts us off on such a good thing with some technical difficulties. But when you're one man banding it yourself, heck, I can barely jump on this chair to get up here to reach what we're doing. So, the man sitting next to me does need an introduction because he had a great, illustrious career in the NFL. One of those Rocky type stories where you weren't drafted, you end up playing as a replacement player, which probably was a tough thing to do. Then try to get back in the league. You went to Canada, came back, played a lot of years for the Lions and the Bears. In fact, still as the passing yardage leader, single season for Chicago, although that new kid might chase that in a year or two. But
I hope so. No one's gotten it yet, but he would be a great guy to get. Yeah.
But Erik Kramer joining me here on Dave Stevens Speaks. And Erik, thanks. Obviously, it's probably great for you to see all your old teammates and friends and some of these guys that used to tackle you and try to take you out of the game.
No doubt. They're just being the Super Bowl week and having it here. There happened to be a few Lions in town. So the other night we got together. What was supposed to be a cast of Jerry Ball, Barry Sanders, Lomas Brown, Rodney, and Bob Galliano, myself, turned into 4 of the 6. So Barry and Jerry didn't show up. But no problem. We still had a good time without him. And you're right. I think just being around this week and getting to see some folks just floating around here that I've either played against or played with has been fun.
And you're still in the game a little bit as you are coaching in high school.
I am. Yeah, it's about maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Started coaching quarterbacks over Camarillo High School, which is about maybe, 10 or 15 minutes from where I live. And so far in 2 weeks, we're having a good time.
And you're also obviously here for a reason to talk about some important topics. You've got a mental health mentorship program that you have going, and speak a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's a school-age program to start out, and thinking about 4th and 5th grade kids in an after-school setting like a Boys and Girls Club, and excuse me. And the idea behind it is that starting with kids when they're young like that, to begin to identify things that they like, hopefully in themselves and in others, just little human characteristic traits like telling the truth and having someone's back or being an active and somewhat empathetic listener. Things that carry themselves and carry you into another person's life in a positive way. And then from there, being able to, they're going to encounter things in life, either on campus or in their families or on a school team or whatever. And so getting to kind of act out some of those scenarios so that they can better learn how to deal with them and that people won't want to be on the wrong side of that as one that's in a bully situation or in other situations. And so eventually that leads to you as Joe Smith, the kid, learning how to maybe not only see those characteristics in other people, but actively pursue them to be on your, what I would call a home team or a support group, that when you encounter things in life or that you might see other people encountering, you have a way of reaching out and vice versa, so that as life's challenges grow upward and outward, you are now have these tools in your kit to start dealing with some of those things. And over a lifetime, that's what you'll have. And if you start around age 9, 10, and then you take care of that through high school, then that's who you are the rest of your life. And you're sort of versed in how not to become isolated or not let someone else become isolated.
And you talk about that oscillation, and people look at a former NFL quarterback being a star role. You must have a cush life after the game. Things are going to go great. You're going to have a perfect life. But as we discussed earlier, life isn't always perfect. And there's been some big challenges in your life. A tragic story of your 18-year-old son overdosing on heroin, not intentional. Mm-hmm. And then, your own personal battle, I would assume, based on what that tragedy caused you personally. And if you'd be okay sharing your story.
Of course, I would love to. So, yeah, that started really back, talking about Griffin, that started back when he was, say, 2nd, 3rd grade, as you look back at it. And some of the difficulties and challenges he had in school or in as he got older, forming and keeping relationships and friendships. And so that culminated in a few things prior, but Griffin ultimately ended up in drug rehab in an inpatient program. This was like around maybe the middle of his 10th grade year in high school. And then he went, that was about a 90-day inpatient, which he wasn't really appreciative of. And then, excuse me, that led to an outpatient program, which he actually was appreciative. And so he wasn't going to school in the inpatient, but in the outpatient, he did. And so it was kind of a main teacher and then a couple of aides. And that got Griffin believing in himself once again. And unfortunately for him, he relapsed. And so you're right. That did lead to one of the saddest days and then beyond times of my life. But then also, about 6 months or 8 months after Griffin passed away, my mom passed away. And she didn't find out until the day after Mother's Day that year that she had stage 4 unit cancer. And then around that time, my dad started a slow decline that turned out, it went from untreated, what's it called? I forget. I'll think of it. Anyway, it turned acid reflux. It turned into esophageal cancer. And so he had not yet died yet, but he was well on his way. And so you're right. So this led to me falling into a fairly deep depression, and then making an attempt on my life. Unfortunately, from close range, it was a bad shot. And go ahead.
I'm a father of 3 sons, and one, losing a son, I don't want to tear up just thinking about what that battle was like. But to get to that lowest point where can you take us through that a little bit of like what your thoughts were, why you needed to make that attempt?
So some time had gone by. So now Griffin passed away October 30th, 2011. My mom was, I think it was July 8th or 12th, 2012. And so it was, it didn't hit me right away. I was sad for sure. But it took a little time. And then dealing with my dad, he started out, he was not financially secure. So he started out so I live here in this area. He started out probably about, 30, 40 miles away from me. And I would arrange closer and closer for him to be. And, but like I said, when he ended up having a surgery that removed the little flap, which is your esophagus, and therefore he couldn't swallow, and he couldn't eat. And so it wasn't long after that before he was on his way out. And so, yeah, over time, this certainly led to my demise. And the one thought that I have from back then, I don't remember why, the one thought I did have was that people in my life, and I guess I was around 52, 51, weren't coming, they were leaving. And those people weren't coming back. And so, that was a very, very difficult time that unfortunately resulted in me doing what I did.
But fortunately, you did survive, and you're here to talk about it. And
Yeah.
so, does that shock you back to reality once you wake up and you're okay? Or, you're just not healed overnight mentally.
Nope, you aren't. And so it took me a good, what are we in, 2022? It probably took me until maybe a year and a half ago to kind of fully, maybe not mine then, but to fully, I guess, become healed. It takes your brain a while. And so, yeah, not only do you have the trauma of, in this case, the gunshot itself, which is about, in a perfect world, if there is such a thing, that's a 2 to 3 year recovery. I had a lot of fainting spells and seizures along the way too, which kind of extends that. And it wasn't explained to me until about maybe a year and a half ago, there was Dr. Tomaszewski was a neuropsychologist that evaluated me. And this is what he said. He goes, Erik, there's going to be times when someone can look at you right now and say, if somebody's stealing from you, it would not register. If there's, it didn't have that capability. And made worse by these seizures. So, like I said, this was, 2015, August 2015. I don't think I fully recovered until recently.
Probably a lot. Do you ever fully? I mean, do you have to?
I don't know.
You know, it's amazing.
One thing I will tell you is that as part of my recovery, I've had some several key people that have stepped up and been part of it. My aunt and uncle, her husband, Bill, so Patrice and Bill, and then Anna Durgan, who I went to high school with, and of course my son Dylan and a couple friends. But you know, you really find out there's not always a lot of people standing there, but the ones that are. And then also there's going to be people that you didn't know beforehand that figure out a way to step into your life that you didn't even know see coming. So there's been all of that.
All right, last downer question. Since this has happened, obviously you've probably lost people in your life, and how do you avoid that trigger then to, because I know as I'm growing older, both of my parents died from cancer the day I left for college, so I was alone in my life, made a lot of bad choices, turned to cocaine, and not a period I was proud of, and so I'm just wondering, what do you do in a situation where another close person in your life, football teammates, things like that, where they're killing themselves? I mean, are you okay as far as now dealing with that, or is it still a struggle?
Nope, not a struggle whatsoever. Every morning I get up, I'm excited my feet hit the floor. I'm grateful to be here. And one of the things that I do, I'm so grateful to be here that I like doing things like coaching. I like doing things like this mental health membership program and other things like that. So
the intensive wellness program.
Exactly. So there's just things that you figure out ways how to step into someone else's life. Well, just by being you.
Well, just one day I'd like to wake up with my feet on the ground, but that's a topic for another show. That would be faith healers and magicians. But no, Erik Kramer joining us here, and as we get up to some more positive topics, has it been tough to watch the franchises you play for?
Go ahead and say it.
Suck. I mean, the Lions. Poor Matthew Stafford. Thank God he's gotten a chance, and the Bears have just, they're just. I mean, what's wrong with your teams?
So not only these teams, but others, here's what I would say about that the ownership doesn't know how to get out of their own way. So it's not like there aren't human beings out there that could step in and do this job and do it well. It's just that there are the owners standing in their own way. They're the ones that make the poor decisions, no one else. So, but you never hear them stand up and say, this was all my fault.
The franchise like the Lions, I mean, you had a player in your backfield that is one of the greatest, arguably, running backs in history, and he walked away from the game.
Okay.
They had a wide receiver that walked away from the game.
Right. Would they have walked away on another team? I don't know.
I doubt it.
I doubt it, too.
They were so pissed off. They didn't want to go to another team and deal with
These two franchises you just mentioned, the Bears and the Lions, have historically made nothing but bad decisions. So if you look at it from my standpoint, who's the problem there? Was it Barry Sanders? No. Was it anyone that played it? No. It's the people making all the decisions. So it's in both of those franchises. It's in many others. So if you think back in those days, like in the 90s, who were the teams in the NFC at least that were like competing every year?
Vikings.
They could have. I would say the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Packers. And they figured out, I'm going to go do what I got to do to get there. So when the 49ers won the Super Bowl, it wasn't just Deion Sanders they brought along. It was Charles Mann, Ricky Jackson, Plummer. It was a bunch of guys. And they made it happen. Why? Because they got tired of losing Dallas. So the Lions didn't get tired of losing anybody. They just were lucky enough to have, like, Kevin Colbert put that team together. Ron Hughes helped put that team together. Not the Fords, not Wayne Fonts. So, that's unfortunately, they've never figured out how to put an organization together, top to bottom, that would produce a goal, succeeding at getting that goal. I'm not sure they even had a goal.
Well, at least you had that taste at the NFC Championship game. That I'm sure that's one of those regrets if you could do over again, kind of thing. But
well, we got beat by a better team, coach. Simple. And if you might recall, the first game of the season, the result was about the same. And they just, Joe Gibbs and that organization did things the right way. They snuffed out whoever they were, Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Super Bowl. It's the exact same way. So, that's just, some teams do it at a high level. Some teams don't.
So, anything else you want to talk about as far as your life?
Here,
I'm
I'll throw
amazed.
this out there.
All
Since
right.
you just said I had a fairly good story, a guy about a year and a half or so ago, 2 years ago, approached me about doing a book. His name's William Croyle, and he's done other books in a human interest story kind of way. And Bill is how he goes by in life. But he's written probably 13, 14 books on unique stories, I would say. So I said to him one day, so what he did is he read an article written by Dan Wetzel. And then Bill took that and went back and researched me. And so he reaches out to Anna Durgan, who I mentioned, and said, hey, do you think Erik would want to talk about writing a book together? And so eventually she let me know that. And so Bill and I had some conversations. And at first, he seemed like he wanted to do this book that talked more about a little bit about my career, more about the depression, more about the suicide attempt, and then recovery. And then that was it. And I said, Bill, that's great, but there's so much more to this than that. And eventually he said, you're right, and a publisher would want to know the whole story anyway. So ever since he said that, we've been working on this thing together. I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's going to be good. So I'm going to say, like, in his mind, this would come out, it would be completed sometime, what are we in now? What is this? February, right? So it would be completed sometime probably in the next 3 to 4 months and be ready for launch in the fall.
Has it been good therapy for you? Is it getting things out?
Well, I think I've already had enough of that. I'm interested in telling the bigger story here. So one of the components is that during my recovery, I was taken advantage of by a certain person, and she stole quite a bit of money, and she forged some checks. She basically depleted my deceased son's savings account, which was a memorial fund, who she knew, and she knew Griffin. And it's just a pathetic look at an individual. But what happened there was, let's round up and say she stole $300,000. The combination of the criminal justice system and the conservative court system cost me $400,000. So who's the bigger thief here? So Anna and I are trying to work with Senator Hertzberg's office. He's a California Senate Majority Leader, trying to get a bill enacted and written to start to address some of these issues. And so that's the bigger picture I'm talking about. And yes, I'm grateful to be here, and a lot of good things and sometimes tragic things have happened. But there's so many more things looking forward that can be changed for the better. And so that's hopefully what this book will end up being about.
I can't wait to read it. It sounds like it's going to be an awesome thing. Well, this has not been an uplifting thing. But life is serious. And Erik, I'm so glad that you battled those demons and are sitting here with me. I hated you against the Vikings. I hated you in the Metrodome against the Vikings. It's just one of those things. But it's great to have you here, and best of luck in the future. I can't wait to see this book. The name, that's gonna. Have you thrown out any or?
No, you helped come up with the name. We're still waiting. That's probably the last thing.
Kramer versus Kramer's already been taken. So
True enough.
Got to throw that one out.
And I'm not fighting against myself. But whatever you come up with, we'll just stamp it at the end and send it out.
All right. I'll think about that. All right. Well, Erik Kramer joining us. You got to have a prediction. Your team wasn't going to be here. So,
Right.
I mean, are you an NFC guy or?
Not really.
No.
I'll just say I'm not even a fan of either team. But even growing up here in LA. But I will say I think the Rams are going to win. I think that let's take a guess here and say 31-21. I think the Rams will probably jump out to an early lead. Maybe the Cincinnati makes a little run in the second half early on, and it'll just be up to the Rams not to do something tragic to lose it.
And do you have a favorite quarterback or player that you like? You might see a little yourself in these days that you follow?
Let's see here. Not necessarily. The guy that I like to watch the most, period, is a guy named Erik. He's a game wrecker. And now that he's got Von Miller on the other side and it's just a solid defense top to bottom around, he's kind of, to me, the guy that's going to stand out in this game potentially as the game's MVP.
That sounds like a pretty good prediction. Either way, I'm excited to hopefully.
And if not him, maybe it'll be the Von Miller MVP.
Hey, we haven't had a defensive player in a while, so it would be nice to have that. So
probably since Von Miller.
Yeah, Erik Kramer joining us right here. Great to see you. And of course, when the book comes out, we'll help promote it. We'll want to make sure that everybody reads it. And it's not going to be X's and O's. This is about a true life story, but a success story, and a success story that continues with your mental health mentoring kind of thing. So keep making an impact, keep saving lives, and God bless you the rest of the way. I really hope.
And you look good in purple, by the way.
Hey, you know what? The wheelchair's purple. It's just
go with it.
They're never going to be at a Super Bowl I'm going to be at, so it's not going to matter anyway. So. All right, Dave Stevens at Radio Row. Nate Boyer coming up. We're going to talk about the movie that I saw with him, his movie MVP. My friend's a movie star, so you want to continue to stay with us. And Pat McAfee joining us at 3 o'clock. So that guy that's been screaming over my shoulder, I'll scream at him a little bit and do a little payback on my show. You're watching Ability Media right here live on streaming on Disability Channel. We make impact and differences, so follow us. And don't forget to follow Dave Stevens on all social media platforms. We'll see you in a little bit. Erik Kramer, thanks for joining us. Take care. We'll be back.